Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. We are here to discuss Chapter 3 of The Other Westmore, the book that we are currently reading together. But before we get into all that, Dana, how are
Yeah,
you, my dear?
somewhat adrift, let's say. The lack of structure has been, liberating, but at the same time, I sleep a lot more. I took 2 naps today. It was kind of weird. I'm just, oh no, Sarah, that's okay.
You can
You can just
probably
make
remember,
make
though, when
something up.
we.
We wouldn't know
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah,
Just
Sarah, just lie.
it's not necessarily lying. She's coming up. Well, thanks for letting us know of the deep and abiding respect that you have for my assignments.
To be fair, not one of your actual students. Just putting that out there.
That's true. That's true. And at least she did it.
But also, again, not clever enough to just lie and say, oh, yeah, I've got those, because we would never know the difference.
Yeah. Yeah. See, Sarah, you can take note from us. You can always lie. I
Just
mean, I mean, here's the thing. Like I tell my students, like I may not always know, not always, but I usually know when they're, when they're like, well, just like just don't. Just be like Sarah, everybody.
oh, look, she found them. Woohoo.
Well, Sarah, we're working with prompts 2 and 3 this week.
Yeah,
So look at your responses to those,
for two and
and we're gonna,
three.
yeah. Oh gosh,
Oh,
yeah. Joe mentioned this on Facebook.
Joe has read ahead of all of us. He's actually finished the book.
Well, I mean,
Well,
I
listen,
have finished
listen.
the book, Steve.
Well, yeah, but you teach it. I mean, like you.
That doesn't necessarily matter. It doesn't always follow.
Oh, I've taught it many times. Never read a page of it.
Usually, you have to read a little of it, but you don't necessarily have to read all of it.
It's hard to fake your way through an entire unit on a book if you've never read any of it. But
Yeah, yeah, just going for the spark notes and stuff, because honestly, that's what the students are probably doing anyhow. And then
or
and
you
then when
could
they turn their papers in, you just sort of like do some, you check that their copy pasted stuff actually, that their quotes actually come from the book. This is why stuff that's in the public domain is good, because then you could just open a copy of the text and then search for what they say their quote is, and does it show up on the page that they say they're referencing, or at least within the chapter, because sometimes the Project Gutenberg version of a book is going to have, it's not actually going to have page numbers because it's just
right,
a
of
text.
course.
So
I'm picturing the bad teacher version of you that comes like shuffling into class 20 minutes late, hungover, sunglasses on, cup of coffee in hand. You sit down at your desk and you take a minute and then you look at the class and you go, "Okay, so who wants to tell me what happened in chapter 3?" And you clearly haven't read it even yourself. So you're depending on the students to be like, "Here's what happened."
that's like terrifying. I mean, yeah, the idea of trusting the students that much is just like, it's
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 you fool, you're going to end up in jail.
it's a recipe for trouble.
Yo, boy. Yeah, Joe McClory, that's actually what I did with no brain, not the alchemist.
You taught The Alchemist in your class?
No, I was responding to Jim McClory. He said
Oh.
he read it while listened while driving.
Oh,
Um
right. You listen. Yeah, I listened to the
um
audiobook. Yeah.
yeah. The other book we did,
Oh, the one we just. Oh, the Dispossessed.
The Dispossessed.
Yeah.
Well, like my brain apparently went the alchemist, no, the anarchist, no, the dispossessed. It
Well,
was
you can
something
see,
like that.
you can see
But
how
yeah,
you
the
get
first time the
there.
first time I read it, it was on audiobook, and I got it from the library, and then on my drive to and from school, I listened to that, and that's how I did it.
There we have it.
That's why I wasn't sure of the spelling of some of the names, because I mean, you know, they speak like Provicaniotic, and some of it, the names are not like our names at
Yeah,
all.
you you can't always guess at the spelling of like a made up sci-fi name.
Loretta, I can answer that. The answer is it doesn't really matter. So, I
Oh
does
yeah, yeah.
yeah does okay. So one thing that I am curious about, and I should save this for like next week's question, but I would forget. So whatever. Um, Presumably, like Patreon and YouTube, like take a cut.
Yes.
Okay, which one take? Are you allowed to say which one takes a bigger cut, or is
I
that like
think well with
does that go?
Patreon.
Or is that going to get you like your channel locked or something?
No, I don't think I can talk about
Okay.
that. Patreon is it's difficult to say because they take out the Patreon, at least for my account, because I've been a patron for long enough that my account is sort of grandfathered into their old
Before
model.
they upped their rates.
Yeah, before they up their rates. So Patreon itself takes 5%. But then there are other fees on top of that that are
Ooh.
charged for, like, for the transactions when the money is changing hands. And that all depends on how much you're earning that month. So it varies a little bit, not a lot, but it varies a little bit from month to month. But I think I get to keep a bigger cut of the Patreon. So if you are not a patron or a member at this point, and your number one concern is how much of the money does Steve get to keep, Patreon is it's not a huge difference. Like Patreon is slightly preferable in that way. But I mean, the big difference for people who aren't, I mean, there really is no big difference for people who aren't either a patron or a member. Like, to me, I would just say do whatever is the easiest for you. Like, if you want to support my channel and start, giving me a monthly pledge. I mean, if you already have a Patreon account and you're supporting other people and it's easier for you just to add me to that, then that's great. If it's easier for you to click the join button and do it through YouTube and becoming a member, that's great too. Like, there's not a huge difference. And I'm doing it so that channel members get the same stuff that patrons get. You know what I mean? Like, if you become a channel member at the $5 a month level, you get a shout out at the end of a Trek Actually video, just like
If you
$5 or
were a
more per
$5
month
patron.
patrons, and everybody gets the link to the Hangouts, and everybody gets to submit questions for Ask Away. And so I mean, the benefits are equivalent. So it's just up to you. And Sarah, no, if Andrew wants I have no
Well,
preference.
here's here's
If
here's
yeah,
one thing that I was thinking. Do you think that maybe that would make a difference with him being able to join the live stream? I can't imagine that it would. But
you
that's
mean
the
you mean
like if he's on YouTube as like a member, if that would somehow toggle whatever is screwing up on somewhere out in the interwebs.
No, I don't think so, because I have his YouTube channel blocked, and I can't, for some reason I can't unblock it. So,
So he might not actually be able to join via YouTube.
well, no, if he wanted to join, if he wanted to join like the monthly hangout, he could do that, because that's the platform that's
No,
that
I meant
hosts
like
is.
if he did the
Oh,
as a member, would that maybe
I don't know if that would make I don't know if that would make a difference or
I
not.
don't know. That's the only other thing that I thought about. And yeah, the perks are the same. Now the other thing I wanna point out, Jim McClory, yes, I've read the Earthsea books, but it's been a long time ago. And Sarah has pointed out that we accepted her bald-faced lie. So apparently she
Well,
doesn't actually have it. That's okay. First of all, we don't really care.
he's not that invested in it.
It's
No.
not, yeah, it's not.
Yeah, that's
Sarah,
great.
that's
He
awesome.
better stay on Patreon. He might get unblocked if he becomes a YouTube member. Oh, and
Can't
also,
have that.
as far as the perks, Loretta, I think the only perks that patrons get that members don't get are at like higher levels, and a lot of them are perks that most people choose not to take advantage of anyway for whatever reason. Like, and I don't even know if I'm offering it as a perk anymore, since the Steve and Stuffy series was retired, and we're just, working our way towards a new Stuffy show. It used to be a perk at the $20 level, that if you wanted to, you could request a custom video that I would make. It would be either me or one of the stuffy characters, or two of the stuffy characters. You could choose stuffy characters to make like a custom video for, basically just like saying hello or saying whatever you wanted them to say, happy birthday, or congratulations or whatever. And that was at the $20 a month level, and there is no $20 a month level for channel members. The highest you can pledge for a channel member is $10 a month. Um, so I guess in a sense that perk is not available to members, but the option to pledge that much isn't available either. So it's not like, you're.
So if you wanted to pledge a lot of money, Patreon's the way to go.
That's true. Yes. If you want to be incredibly generous and give me a bunch of money a month, then there's no ceiling on Patreon. You can pledge, and also there's no, like, you can customize you can pledge any particular dollar amount you want. Like, you don't, if you want to pledge, $6 a month for some reason, you can do that. You get, whereas with YouTube, it's
$7 a month because it's a prime number.
That's right. Yeah. But with, the YouTube membership, you select tiers, and members just, if you want to, like, you can donate 99 cents a month, or I think there's another one that's $2.99 a month and $4.99 a month. And the ones I have set up are 99 cents, $4.99, and $9.99. And you can only pledge one of those amounts. You can't customize it.
Well, Loretta, YouTube takes some money too. So I mean,
YouTube takes a cut too. But I mean, YouTube,
as does the government.
Yeah, I don't.
Taxes.
Yeah, really.
So
I don't mind that. I mean, like, if you want to give me, and honestly, I think I would say, like, if you want to make a pledge and you want to give me like 100% of the money, you can always send me like something through PayPal. But I think even PayPal takes a little bit when I transfer it. So.
Sarah asks if I have anything like YouTube membership or Patreon. Yeah, it's called a job, like a real job.
Nice. Look at you contributing to society.
Oh my goodness.
With your job.
Oh, I'm
teaching
sorry.
People.
I laughed too hard. Okay, so everybody, you can see a little bit of my bed here, and I have two visitors. And one is snuggled up right against me, and when I laughed, I think I either joggled him or I breathed too hard, and he flicked his ears at me.
How dare you?
Have you changed your position on climate change? Joe, I doubt it.
Have me change my position? Yeah, no. I mean, and we're just sort of kidding around, but I mean, I've had shitty people make pledges on Patreon that I've refunded and banned them. Like, I don't take money from shitty people. And if a fracking billionaire wanted to say, hey, I'll give you a bunch of money if you'll become a climate change denier, well, you just give the money to someone else. I'm not gonna, because I can't do that. I'm not gonna do that.
Oh, Sarah Scott, let's not forget that I work for the state. So yeah, capitalism and statist work. So as a public school educator. Random Geek, we will miss you.
Yes, we will.
Oh, thank you so much. And sort of, you'll see sort of where the discussion went, and you can add that in your comment as well, your thoughts on that. I look forward to reading the comments.
Yes, indeed.
Always. I got comments.
You did?
I did. I got some comments. So, like, I, of course, approved them, and one of them asked me a grammar question, so I replied to that. That was, yay, that made my day.
Huzzah.
So,
speaking of,
although I will say that if a fracking billionaire offered me money and didn't request that I change, that I espouse views that I don't have, I would take their money.
Yes, this is something we disagree on. We've talked about this before. I don't know if we've ever talked about this in a video, but we've talked about this personally a lot. Like, you're complete, as long as there's no strings attached and you're not obligating yourself to do something that you think is wrong, you're completely fine taking money from shitty people. You're like, hey, thanks for the money, shitty person.
Yeah,
because it puts more money in your pocket and you don't have to do anything, and you just, yeah, thanks for having. Yeah. Now you have slightly less money and I have slightly more money. Thank you. Ka-ching.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you, Loretta, for the super chat.
And
And Dana does rock, absolutely,
Oh,
completely
thank
right.
you. Well, but I mean,
Yeah,
Sarah, like I said, I am, I am working and, participating in capitalism that way, and I buy things and participate in capitalism that way because, that the things that I buy, I'm sure they line the pockets of billionaires. Exactly, random geek, and be like, yes, thank you, haha. Like I think, Bernie said something about like not accepting money. Maybe it was just that he didn't take money, that he didn't set up any super PACs, but I think he actually returned
I think yeah, he
somebody's
got a
money and being
donation
like,
from yeah
thank
some
you,
problematic
I'm
group.
not
Yeah,
changing my policies, so whatever.
yeah,
Exactly, yeah. And because I've also I have friends who are uncomfortable like accepting gifts sometimes because then they feel they have to reciprocate. I'm like, no, what you do when you get a gift is you say thank you so much, or
yeah.
accepting gifts that they don't like. I'll take it and I'll be, oh, are you okay, time to go. Have to I don't know, they just abruptly got up and
They
decided
have
to
an
go
appointment
anywhere.
they're late for.
Maybe, well, not both of them, just the one who was
Just
like snuggled up next to me so that I
oh,
couldn't move. But yeah, I will just take the money.
I guess for
Go
me
on,
it's
take the money and run.
for me I guess I just have a personal. I'm just not comfortable with it. Like if I'm not comfortable taking, even though like because I would be the same way as you. Like I wouldn't feel as though I owed them anything if they just said here have some money. Like I wouldn't feel as though I had to change my behavior in any way if I didn't agree to that. But I guess part of it is I don't feel right taking things from people I think are dog shit. Like if you're just a shitty person and I wouldn't have anything to do with you in any other context, why would I take your money?
Because
And
you offered it, and I like money.
yeah, I know, and
And
I
money
get your. I
fucking
mean, I
gives me.
totally see your side of it. Like, I totally see your side of it. And also, it's like, I mean, and I am not. This is one of the areas where I take a slightly less suspicious view than a lot of my fellow progressives, and especially a lot of people who are further to the left than me. Like, um, I don't necessarily think that just because somebody like takes money from say like a like a Wall Street firm or you know what I mean, or some other group, like it doesn't if it was something that was like a campaign donation that they didn't even really have anything to do with personally, like I don't think I think there's a difference between so and so took money from so and so is in so and so's pocket. Like
Oh yeah,
I feel like there's a difference there that often, or there's a distinction there that often gets kind of glossed over, and people just sort of say like, well, they're all the same, they're all in the pockets of big business, and it's like I don't think that's really. I mean, at least I don't think it's equally true for everybody. I mean, maybe it's
yeah.
true to an extent for every, like, but I don't think it's. I feel like that's painting with way too broad of a brush. But at the same time, if I can avoid taking money from a shitty person, I'm going to do that. But like I completely see your side of it too. Of like, hey, thanks for the money, asshole. I'm going to go spend it on something you'll probably hate.
Yep.
I
And
totally see that
Jim
side of it.
Jim Corey says I would donate it to people they would not support. I think,
Yeah,
not necessarily. It would depend on like how much they donated. Like, especially if it was like if I was actually campaigning for something, I'd be like, yes, I will use this to fund my campaign and enact policies which you won't support. Um, but if it was like if they just gave me $5, I'll be like, I will use this to treat myself. I will probably buy a McDonald's breakfast.
you know what I would love to do? I would love to get like a huge donation from some kind of right wing billionaire, and then just use the money to like buy out a bunch of local Chick-fil-A franchises, and like maybe pay the hourly employees a generous severance package, and then close down the Chick-fil-A's and bulldoze them. That's what I would do with the contribution. I would buy and destroy Chick-fil-A's. Or alternatively, I could buy the Chick-fil-A and then just force it to open on Sunday. Could do that too.
I might invest in like my own, like, sort of like I would invest in a different, like I would start a franchise of fast food, that burgers, fries, uh hot dogs, Yeah, there would be
There,
hot dogs.
there aren't nearly enough fast food hot dogs. I agree.
There really aren't. And then like fish sandwiches, but like the one thing we wouldn't serve, no chicken.
You can get
And
chicken everywhere else. No chicken here, my
and
friend.
rainbows everywhere.
Oh yeah.
Yep. We have to figure out something extra to do for no, Pride Month would not be rainbows. Pride Month would be glitter. Sparkles,
extra,
rhinestones.
extra for Pride
No, no,
Month.
no, not glitter because that shit's gonna get in food.
Well, not
But
literal
rhinestones.
glitter, but maybe
Rhinestones would be okay.
rhinestones. Yeah, something with like a glittery effect. Yeah, not actual glitter. Oh, Sarah, what is Chick-fil-A? Chick-fil-A is a fast food chain. I guess they don't have them over there. Lucky you. Chick-fil-A is a fast food chain here in the States that is owned and operated by Christian bigots who are anti-gay and just anti-LGBTQ in general. Even though now they're pretending that they're not, but they still totally are. Like
Yeah,
you
they
can find,
donate to like
they don't. Yeah.
what's it called where they try to like make you not gay?
Oh,
Conversion
well,
therapy.
conversion therapy. Well, and also I just saw an article just recently that the owners of or two of the founders of Chick-fil-A, so not the company itself, but the founders, people who are still very much involved with the company, but using their own personal money, support like a lot of anti-trans stuff. And are like helping to support like the anti-trans bills that are being pushed through a lot of state legislatures, like to stop trans athletes from playing school sports and that kind of shit. The Chick-fil-A, there's a lot of Chick-fil-A money in that, so it's just a shitty and the food's not that great. Like I do not understand. Like why would you want to go and get kind of just a sort of okay fast food chicken sandwich when like there are other fast food joints that just have chicken on the menu just to have it, that don't even pay any
Yeah.
attention to it, and it's better than Chick-fil-A. Like the fucking chicken sandwiches at Burger King are better than Chick-fil-A. Think about that. The chicken sandwiches at Burger King are better than the chicken at Chick-fil-A. So yeah.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
some random gig. Yeah, it's like Popeyes or Churches or KFC, only the food is worse and they're super bigoted. So just go to Popeyes instead if you want some chicken.
Yeah, I had
Yeah.
a friend on Facebook say, for Pride Month, stop buying any Chick-fil-A. I was like,
Way ahead of you.
yeah.
I remember actually because the first one, we didn't have them around here for the longest time, and then when the first one opened, it was before I knew that they were such they were such a homophobic company. Um, so I went and tried it just once, like after they first opened, and I was just like, "Oh, this is it!" Like, because back then the marketing was really centered on like it's the original chicken sandwich or like the greatest chicken sandwich, and it's like, it's I mean, it's just kind of okay.
Yeah.
Like
To be fair, I remember it not being bad.
it's not bad, but it's just like, well, I mean, why I could just go over to Wendy's, which is literally next door to the Chick-fil-A. It's like, and the chicken sandwiches at Wendy's are fucking awesome. Why wouldn't
Take
I
your
just
word
get a
for it.
chicken?
My thing is the McDonald's breakfast. I like the
Oh, I
McDonald's
know you
breakfast.
do. I know you do.
Yeah.
Loretta says Sarah is working for Chick-fil-A and is ashamed, so she's pretending she doesn't know what it is.
She's like, I live in a different country. I don't know anything about Chick-fil-A. I promise.
I don't even go here.
I don't even live in your country.
I'm not from here. So anyway,
Hey, you can't rent here anymore.
hey, screw me.
I'm not even supposed to be here today. I don't know.
I don't appreciate your ruse, ma'am. Your ruse, your cunning attempt to trick me.
Oh, Randall.
I hope it feels so good to be right. There's nothing more
I
exhilarating.
will let you know. Oh gosh. I will
There's
let you
nothing
know.
more exhilarating than pointing out the
I wish I
shortcomings
could
of
tell
others,
him.
is there?
Not only it feels good to be right, Randall, and I am a lot of the time. But you know what feels even better? Having you acknowledge that I am. So thank you, Randall, for acknowledging that I'm right. And then he could say, "You can't rent here anymore." I'd be like, "That's okay. I'm right."
I don't need to rent anymore, Randall. I've got everything I need. So
Our
anyway,
sense of completion. Yeah, let's go. Let's go to the discussion since we're almost half an hour in.
let's talk about the we're going to talk about on the Likert scale. We're going to talk about
The prompts.
prompts 2 and 3 before we get into the chapter of the book. So let's
Woo!
first I'll put this on screen for everybody. We're looking at prompt number 2. Uh, and prompt number 2 says parents are a more important factor in what kind of a person someone becomes than their friends are. And of course, your choices here were strongly agree, somewhat disagree, strongly disagree. So hopefully everybody who did this remembers what their answers were.
Or can look.
Or can look because you wrote it down. So for mine, for this one I said B, somewhat agree that parents are more important than that parents are more important than friends and what kind of person you turn out to be.
I said C, somewhat disagree.
Yeah.
I said that peers are more important than parents.
And I think this was because when we first I guess when we were talking after the first episode, and we were comparing our answers, I think a lot of the that when we answered differently, it was usually like one of us would say B and the other would say C, and it was just
Or
based
something like
on
that.
and it was based on just sort of how we interpret the question.
Yep.
Because like
Yeah,
I
sorry
just
guys, we already talked about all of our answers.
once, yeah. Because like it's just not as there's wiggle room in this one. Like it doesn't. I feel like it's not asking for an absolute answer, and because of that, and because like I mean, because I think when you were talking about why you chose your answer, when you said you leaned more toward peers were more important. And I guess for
Yeah.
me, I lean more toward parents are more important because, by the time you get to the point in your life, like especially when you get into like middle school and high school, where your peers really start to have a strong influence on you.
Yes.
Your parents have been the dominant influence in your life, probably in most cases.
Up till then, yeah.
Up till then. And you're not fully formed, but you're partially formed. Like you could still change and evolve as a person drastically throughout your adolescence, but there's a base there that I think was formed mostly by but was strongly influenced by your parents, let's say.
Yeah, and as a kid, you don't get a whole lot of say in your environment, which is formed entirely, almost entirely by your parents or guardians or whoever. But I mean, the biggest thing for me is about choice. You don't choose for the most part who raises you, especially when you're a kid. But you do choose your friends.
Right.
You choose who you hang out with, and you make those to some degree. I mean, you don't have obviously complete freedom. You don't know everybody in the world. You don't have, you're limited by who you come into contact with, but within that framework, you get to make a choice. And I think that's really powerful.
Yeah. And from the available options, from the people in your social circle that could potentially be your friends, who you choose to spend your time with, who you choose to stand alongside, not only does that say something about you, but that choice, especially at that young of an age, like that helps to make you into who you are.
Yeah, it's kind of what we see in the book.
Yeah.
The way that one choice leads to another.
Oh, yes.
Sarah, I'm so sorry. I hope you were able to enjoy the lunch. I'm sorry you hate the company that you work for. I really am. I'm curious though. You mentioned possibly teaching. Is that going to still be for the same company?
Yeah, and I mean, Sarah, I understand.
Sarah agrees with me, by the way.
Yes, yeah. Sarah said C, yeah, or maybe she thinks.
So yeah, given that you don't actually have your answers, we're treating it with a bit of suspicion. So
fucking liar.
Coming from you, Steve. Good gravy.
How dare you? How dare you
Hey, we
besmirch
know
my
you're a liar because
character?
you're so bad at it. Sarah's at
Bes-
least decent.
Besmirch my character on my own channel, on the sacred ground of my own YouTube channel.
Would you like me to besmirch you? Would you prefer that I besmirch you on my channel and have you edit the video?
And then you watch it and you're like, "Where's the besmirchment? I'd be like, "Oh
I'll
yeah,
put it in the description.
I had to cut that. Sorry." You'd put it in the description.
Another denial.
You'd put it in the description that I have no power over whatsoever. Damn it, she besmirched me in the description.
Okay, so number 3.
Yes, so let's look at number 3 now. So
oh yeah,
number
I
3.
think we're going to see a lot of unity on this sucker.
number 3 says Black Americans commit crimes in greater numbers than white Americans.
I had a student call me out on this semester.
Oh boy, I want to hear that story. So I said D for this one, which is strongly.
Did anybody
disagree.
not pick D? It's only because we're teasing you, Sarah. We love you, and we are confident that you know that.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's all hopefully it's taken as all in good fun because that's how we mean it. And if it's not taken that way, we apologize. But yeah, so strongly, I said strongly disagree. And I think this is one of the ones we talked about where, I mean, I happen to know that that's factually incorrect. And I guess if you don't happen to know that that's factually incorrect, it's about, what your assumptions are. And that's the meaning of the question. But if you happen to know that it is factually incorrect, that Black people do not, in fact, commit more crimes, then it's an easy.
Loretta brings up a point that I discuss with my students and what constitutes more crimes. She says, since they are 15% of the population here, how could they?
And that's another, it goes back to how you read the question.
Yes. So, and Sarah brings up another point that I haven't talked about as much with the students, and that made me consider C. That many of our laws are written to criminalize poor and non-white behaviors, and
yes.
not essentially not and non-mainstream behaviors. So you could, and it also depends on how you count. Like, so are you counting as, what are you counting as more crime? Like, as far as like more number of crimes versus, percent of that population group.
Right.
So, I think most of my students interpreted it as percentage of the population group, which is how those sorts of questions and those sorts of statements tend to lead. Because otherwise you're right. I mean, there are more white people, significantly more white people than Black people in the United States.
So just in terms of raw numbers, it's not even a question.
Yeah.
But the reason why they try to steer you, why they try to plant that idea in your head of higher percentage of Blacks commit crimes is to also plant the related idea of Black people are more likely to be criminals than white people, which then leads to, you should be more afraid of Black people than you should be of white people.
Yeah.
It's like the chain of racism. You didn't say anything racist. All you said was a statistic, but it leads you inexorably in the direction of an incredibly racist assumption.
We talk again about that if there's a perception that Black people commit more crimes than white people, that means that Black neighborhoods are going to be less safe than white neighborhoods, which means that Black neighborhoods should be policed more.
Right.
And so, but if you have, if you say, let's say that in both neighborhoods, there are 10 crimes committed in a week, but one neighborhood has 10 cops patrolling and the other neighborhood has 1 cop patrolling, which neighborhood is going to have more of those crimes noticed and followed up on?
Right. Exactly. Well, and also like in the chat, Joe just said white people perform a lot more wage theft. And again, it goes back to what are you considering a crime? Because
what constitutes a crime?
Because not only is a lot of wage theft not prosecuted, a lot of stuff that I think most of us would consider wage theft is not even technically illegal. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, just
It's not
underpaying
criminalized.
someone.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what I
I
was
mean,
talking about earlier about
yeah,
criminalizing behavior that's not, mainstream or not white.
yeah, like as long as you are paying someone the legal minimum wage and giving them the benefits that they are legally entitled to at a
Hmm.
minimum, that it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're working them far more than the wage compensates them for, and they're willing to, or compelled to work for that much for whatever
Or
reason.
I mean, even if you're not paying them overtime or telling them that they have to work um, off the clock.
Yeah,
But first of all, are they going to stand up to you when they don't have another job, a better
right,
job already lined up?
right.
Second, if it's not in writing, are they going to just not do it because you didn't write it down and risk, being told off for, not following up, not being a team player, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So there's just, working the system. And so if it's
Yeah,
not written down, then the boss just lies about it or the manager just lies about it and says, I never said they had to do that, or anything like that. And there aren't safeguards in place to make sure that someone isn't, volunteering. So,
right. When
but
there's good.
um, so this semester, one of my students said, some of these prompts aren't opinion based, they're just facts. So it's hard. How do you agree or disagree with a fact? There were some of them that I wasn't sure what to put, so I didn't put anything. And I looked and I went back and I looked and I'm like, you're right. Good for you, kiddo. So yes, absolutely, Loretta.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, but like we said earlier, I mean, even if it is a factual question, I mean, the point of the survey isn't necessarily to check your knowledge of the facts. It's to, to collect information on what people's attitudes are.
mhm,
So if you don't know whether or not, well, if you don't know what the fact is, what do you
mhm,
think? What do you
yeah,
think is most likely to be true?
mhm,
And one more point about that, the idea of, the whether or not a higher percentage of black people commit crimes than white people. When was the last time you ever heard anybody make a point of asking what percentage of white people commit crimes? I have never heard it. Not even black folks that push back against racism don't usually make that point. Nobody ever talks about, well, gee, what percentage of white people commit crimes? It is never a subject. It is always put on black people, racial minorities in general, but usually specifically black people. Black people are the ones that us white folks are told most often that we should be afraid of. It's always in that context. It's always, blacks have a higher percentage of crime, have a higher crime rate than whites. Nobody even knows what percentage of white people commit crimes.
yeah.
It's never brought up ever.
So yeah, and you hear about black on black crime, which is usually, that's what we should be concerned about. Or that's what black people should be concerned about, is black on
Right.
black crime. I'm like, first of all, you're assuming that they're not concerned about it.
Right. I'm pretty sure.
Second of all,
Yeah.
if you're white and you say that, then that means you should be concerned about white on white crime, which is, much higher.
Yeah. Yeah.
And third of all, highest crime rates are, if we're talking about, disproportion, what we need to be talking about is male violence.
Oh,
And why?
and they don't want to have
Why
that.
is
They don't want to have that conversation.
Whether it's male on female or, not to say that women don't commit violent crimes and don't perpetuate violence, but not remotely at the rate that men do. And yeah, Sarah, actually, we watched that together, and in fact, we discuss it in one of our conversation videos, whether Zootopia is propaganda. So
That's
it's on
right.
Steve's channel here, yeah. And but and I'll dispute with you that the main character is shown to be a racist piece of crap. I disagree. I think she is shown that you can be racist and not be, that it's you can try to be a good person and you have these, these values that have been instilled upon you by your family, your peers, your own experiences, your own limited set of experiences within, and then society at large. So, it's, you know, she thinks of herself as, very progressive.
Right.
But yeah, it really pushes back against, liberal ideals. So
Which is one of the great things about that movie is, I mean,
yeah.
because it doesn't make her into a villain. It shows that you
Mm-hmm.
can be a good person or a well-meaning person and
Mm-hmm.
still have these attitudes that you don't know about or acknowledge. And the important thing to remember is that when that
Somebody
sort
points him out.
yeah, exactly. You need to handle it with maturity and own up to it and try to change, not get defensive and say, "Oh, come on, now I'm the enemy," like that, all that, like that's not the way to go. The way to go is to be thoughtful about it, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Yeah,
Well, and also to, if someone calls you out on something like that, the appropriate response is thank you. Because if they call you out on it and they don't just let it slide, that means they trust that it matters to you, that you care, and that
right,
you'd be willing to do something about it. So
exactly.
yeah, yeah, she thought, not just she thought she was a good person, but specifically she thought she was like open minded,
Right.
and you know, um, but and we see hints of that earlier, like when she goes back for the fox repellent earlier in the day. Um, so it has those specific examples, but it's just so low key. She doesn't have the outright bigotry that her parents do, and then later on they, oh, I'm getting out at, um later on their experiences, sort of help open them up. But I mean, her father's like, take the fox repellent, take the fox mace, take the, all this, anti-fox, specifically anti-fox stuff.
Anti-fox stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It is, I think it is to some degree, but at the same time, um, one of the videos that I have listed that I want to have a conversation with Steve about for his channel is the use of violence, and
Yeah.
specifically in terms of 1312, um, all cops are participating in a system that relies upon state sanctioned violence and the threat of violence. So it's
Yeah. Well, and also, I mean, specifically with like the difference between American policing and policing in the UK, as far as I know, and Sarah, or anybody else who knows better, please correct me on this, but as far as I know, ordinary like walk in the beat patrol cops in Britain are not packing heat. They don't carry guns. Like I think cops in Britain have guns when the situation specifically calls for it. Like if they're responding to a situation where there is some sort of an armed presence, like
already known
that
to be
already,
there.
yeah, like cops just walk in patrol don't have guns, whereas here in the United States every single police officer has a gun at all times.
On
Like
them.
every cop is armed. And that does, I mean, and I'm not saying disarming the police would solve all the problems because it wouldn't. There would still be problems with the way we approach policing that would not be solved by just taking away the guns of most cops. But I think that is a big part of it. That
Three important words in Sarah's most recent statement: firearms training.
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 Yes, you'd be
Specifically. So
yeah. So I
yeah.
mean, yeah, yeah, it's not. Um,
Yeah.
that's great.
I'm
Yeah,
I usually phrase it as all cops are complicit,
yeah.
because they are choosing to participate in that system.
Yeah. And like Sarah says over there, discharging a single round is likely to get you suspended pending an investigation. It's so not only are cops not nearly as widely armed, but if you do shoot somebody, it is treated as a big deal.
Or if you discharge your weapon,
Yeah, if
like
you
even if
discharge
you
it,
ain't
yeah,
shoot nobody.
even if you didn't, yeah, but yeah, I mean it's and like I said, that wouldn't fix everything over here, but it would make a huge positive difference if we could get out of this mindset that this siege mentality that cops
Yeah.
have, where everybody they have to be armed, you know, because they're in constant danger every second of the day, and I'm sorry for most cops working a standard day, you know, just walking a beat or driving a patrol car, your life is not in danger every second of the day. You may have told yourself that. We may have mythologized police officers to the point where they think like, yeah, I have to have a gun because you never know. Well, but that's the same with everybody, man. You never know. Shit can happen. Your job isn't any more dangerous than a lot of other people's jobs, statistically speaking. So but yeah, I mean, I think the fact that like literally all of our cops are armed just as standard equipment is a big
Yeah.
part of the difference.
Okay, so I
Yeah,
just I just noticed this.
please.
What'd you do to your thumb?
Oh, I was mowing the lawn and I just developed a blister from pushing the lawnmower.
Oh,
It's not bad. It's not. I mean, I just taped it up because it was a little tender. It's not bad at all. It didn't bleed or anything. It was just a little raw, so I just taped it up. It's okay.
okay. I'm
I'm
glad.
good. I'm good.
So, do you want to actually talk about the book?
Let's talk about the book. This has been a great
Great conversation, though.
conversation. So yeah, we're doing chapter 3 of The Other Westmore,
Lots
and
about school.
yeah, and this chapter begins with Wes, the author, and it's 1987. So a couple years after the last time we after the last chapter. And Wes, remember, his family moved to New York. They're living with Wes's grandparents in the Bronx. And Wes tells us that at this point, his mom has been working multiple jobs to afford to send him to a private school.
Yes.
Yes, and we catch him. He's on the train on his way home because the private school the school is in Manhattan, and
That ain't where he lives.
that no, actually no, the school is in the Bronx, but they're coming
Okay.
back from Manhattan. The school is in the Bronx, but not in the neighborhood where he lives. But they've been in Manhattan for the day, like going. It says they were prowling the sneaker stores. But
Okay,
they're
right, because he was skimming.
Yeah, but they're on the subway back home. And the point of this first scene is all the white people get off at 110th Street
Mm-hmm.
because that's sort of the dividing line between Manhattan and Harlem and then the Bronx. So it's sort of, all the white people get off and stay in Manhattan. And then after that, it's Harlem and the Bronx, and it's a more multicultural population. And that's when the train empties out so much that they can actually sit down because all the white people in business suits get off before
So if you
110th
stand by
Street.
if you stand by a white person in a seat, they're going to get off before they're going to leave the train before you do, and you can snag a seat.
There you go. And he's hanging out with his friend Justin, who he met after they moved in, and he lives in like a different neighborhood, but that is close to where they live. Um, and they've sort of become buddies. And so he goes to his mom is sending him to a private school called the Riverdale Country School, which is a very sort of upscale private school. That its claim to fame is that it's the school that John F. Kennedy attended when he was a kid. So
Ooh.
ooh, it's a big deal. And
Of course, what his friends call it is that white school.
the white school, yeah. And also it is called Riverdale School. So there is an Archie reference. He does say, he was because when he goes back to his neighborhood with all the kids who go to public school, or he says also some of them go to like a nearby Catholic school, but they're not like private school kids. Um, So they may, and he feels out of place among his friends because he's the only one. He doesn't go to school with the rest of them. He goes to this, you know, hoity-toity private school with a name that sounds like something out of the Archie comics. I'm not sure
Where the
if
characters are white.
yeah, right. And I'll assume that a teenager in 1987 would have made an Archie comics reference. I'm not sure if that's entirely true to life or not, but I don't know. Maybe Archie comics were big in the Bronx in the 1980s. I have no idea. Um, but yeah, and also, so they get off the subway, and we're told about um, how like
Wes gets
Justin.
teased.
What's up?
Wes gets teased.
Oh yes, yes, yes. Because of because of the
And so
yeah,
he's like, oh, I'm the big man on campus. I'm the tough guy,
yeah.
and he talks
He
about getting in a fight.
and he tells us that he's exaggerating the story. Like he tells us the readers what really happened, and then we see what he told his friends, that he sort of exaggerates. Said, well, because what really,
Wait, sort of, sort
well,
of. What kind of sort of?
he blows it way up. He blows it way up. And by the way, Charles, great point. Why doesn't Justin back Wes up? Great point. Justin totally should have backed Wes up. But anyway, um, but yeah. So what Wes,
Hey, Justin doesn't want to lie. Justin is an honest young man.
if Justin was Wes's friend, was truly Wes's friend, he would have backed his friend up. What is this? Oh, he didn't want to lie. This is such horseshit. He didn't want to lie. This fucking bullshit performative honesty that means nothing. Back your teenagers in high school. Back your friend up.
Are they in high school at this point?
Are they? I think they are, aren't they? Or maybe middle school.
It's like he's acted like a middle schooler. Come on.
But yeah, you take your friend. I mean, I'm not. He didn't. I mean, it's one thing if like Justin was being asked to do something wrong or do something illegal or something that would put himself in jeopardy. But if your friend is, responding to the taunting of other kids by trying to, embellish a story, back him up. Come on. What? Because it would be lying? Get over it.
But the way it reads though is that he tells a story and everybody's like, that's a bunch of baloney.
Yeah, nobody
and
really.
They look over at Justin like, are you going to perpetuate the baloney or are you going to come clean? Because nobody believes it anyhow. And he's like,
but he still should have had his friends back, especially when his friend was outnumbered like that.
Yeah, and especially since he did actually get suspended.
That's right. Yeah, what actually happened? He tells us what really happened, which is that he and a friend of his were just kind of horsing around.
They were play wrestling.
Yeah, they were just kind of horsing around, and he he grabbed his friend and did a move, and
he goes for a what's that?
I was trying to picture what move they were doing. He said he grabbed his arm with. I grabbed his right arm with mine and hoisted him over my shoulder, then dropped him hard on the ground. It sounds kind of like a hip toss, or like an arm drag, if we're going for like wrestling moves. But it's hard to tell.
Yeah. Like fireman's carry, and then
maybe something like that, or because I'm trying to think of wrestling moves where you grab the arm and then flip him over, and I'm thinking either of a hip toss or an arm drag. But fireman's carry might be something too, but. Because it does say he hoisted him over his shoulder, so it depends on how you read that. But anyway, and so he was suspended for fighting, even though it wasn't really a fight. They weren't like mad at each other, but he gets suspended. But the way he tells the story is the other kid was getting up in his face, and and he had like picked him up and slammed him down. And stood over. He said,
taunted him afterward.
Said he stood over him like Ali over Sonny Liston, which is hilarious.
They're not authority figures. They're his other friends, like neighborhood kids.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And honestly, lie for your friends to authority figures too. I mean, honestly, if I were unless one of my friends in high school or in middle school, unless I knew they were into like some really dark, dangerous shit. I mean, if it was just like, giving your friend an alibi for why they didn't have their homework or something, like, Okay, of course I would lie my ass off for my friends. And I would hope they would do the same for me. Like this fuck, come on. It's goody two shoes bullshit. Like, oh, but it's dishonest. I can't tell a lie. Get the fuck out of here.
Well, I mean, and it's some of it, it's Sarah says she couldn't. There are some people who are just really bad at lying.
Well, then that's what all the more reason why they should practice.
Hasn't helped you.
I can't lie to you. I can lie to other people.
So you,
if I so choose. Charles Chapman, like Jake and Nog in school, exactly. I mean, it didn't go well for them.
They do very much read like Jake and Nog, don't they? Because they're like, they're trying so hard to be badasses. Bless their little hearts.
Yeah, it didn't go that well for them, but they were, they backed each other up.
Apparently, Loretta, he has lied to teachers, but he's not real good at lying to this one.
Have I lied to teachers? Oh, hell yeah, I've lied to teachers. Yeah. I lied to my parents too. Like, I mean, and here's the thing, like, I wasn't like a bad kid at all. I wasn't like a juvenile delinquent. I never got in any serious trouble, but yeah,
did I lied your way out of it?
Well, I never even had to lie my way out of anything that bad. I just never did anything that bad. But did I lie to teachers over like trivial stuff? Did I lie to my parents about trivial stuff? Yes, of course. And I slept like a fucking baby. Like, who cares? Yeah, Joe. Yeah, like a judo toss. Yeah. Well, because a hip toss in pro wrestling is kind of like a judo throw. But yeah, boy, we're spending a lot of time on what kind of move he did to get it. Which I'm
yeah,
I'm totally fine with that. But yeah, so yeah, he Justin kind of fails to back him up. Oh, Justin, I wanted to like you so much. But then a guy comes up to them asking for spare change. And everybody sort of assumes that he says, I need money to make a phone call, but everybody sort of assumes that he's looking for money because he needs to score drugs, because this is where we're introduced to the fact that this is New York City in the 80s and there is a crack epidemic.
Yes.
And it is hitting people, especially in sort of more low income neighborhoods like Wes's. It's hitting people really hard. Yeah. Like it's just everywhere. And it's destroying people's lives.
And it doesn't talk about it in the book, the point that I was making about the criminalization of Black behavior. The fact that, I mean, people get and got. And Charles Chapman, exactly. So just please don't bother. Just don't bother. Don't waste your time. Don't waste my time. God. Almost always, I know. But, I mean, there's sometimes I'm just like, it doesn't matter. And you're lying. I'm just going to find, I don't care. It doesn't matter. So anyway, that instantly put me on edge, Charles. So
hiya, Kira.
But that people get that sentences are tougher for crack than they are for cocaine. It's like,
the sentence disparity is completely irrational. It's purely just because Black people smoke more crack, so therefore their sentence should be harsher.
Yes, and I mean it's never stated that way. It's like crack is so much more addictive, and it's like not, let's get some data to back that up, and there really isn't any.
No, the reason it was the thing about crack was that it was relatively inexpensive and very and easy to get. It was available in very large quantities, so it was what most people did who were into that.
Have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and that sort of, again, that goes back into the idea of perpetuating the cycle, because drug addiction is often a symptom of, poor life situation, like not having, it's a trauma response. It's, this is how I deal with pain. And so not necessarily physical pain, but like stress, depression, mental illness of other sorts, anxiety, pressure, very much like alcoholism. And you're going to see more alcoholism in poorer populations than you are in wealthier populations. And guess what? Communities of color are often less wealthy than white communities and white neighborhoods. So, I mean, there is a correlation between alcoholism and race, but it comes through poverty. Likewise with drug addiction. I mean,
Yeah.
and you'll also see with mental health issues. I mean, they correlate so strongly with poverty that because poverty correlates so strongly with race, there's also a correlation there.
Right. Yeah. 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 Joe points out that because crack is less pure than powdered cocaine, generally speaking, that
Yeah,
it's actually chemically, it's actually less addictive.
yeah,
So yeah, a lot of it is just, it was perceived as worse because it was mostly black people doing it, and we think everything black
and
people do is worse,
yeah,
and because it was more widely available and less expensive, therefore it was just used a lot more widely, which made it
yes,
seem like it was, so much worse than really it wasn't. It certainly wasn't that much of a difference that it deserved to have completely different sentencing. Yeah, it's yeah. Um, oh my God, Sarah, you've been up for 20 hours? Well, yeah, you should go get some sleep.
tuck in, and thanks for coming by.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, wait, Sarah, before you go, you said you had big news that you couldn't tell us about on Wednesday, and now it's Friday, but you said that you were going to find out on Thursday. If you can't tell us, that's cool.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, it's and Charles Chaplin, not insane, just deliberate and uh deceitful. So
Racist?
also that.
Loretta, take some crack. You'll perk right up. Don't listen. That's bad advice, Sarah. Don't listen to that.
Uh,
Don't smoke crack right before bed. Like that's ridiculous.
well, but I think Lorra's point is that it wouldn't be right before bed because then she could stay up
Well,
and
yeah, that's it would definitely not be right before bed if you smoke crack right now.
oh, you
Ah.
still can't tell us? Well, can you tell us when you'll be able to tell us? All right. We can go on.
so so anyway, so Wes and Justin are hanging out with their friends, and we hear about the drug problem in the neighborhood and in the Bronx in general, and how it's gotten so bad that basically, they're not. Yeah, and we heard in the last chapter that Wes's grandparents have a policy that, when the street lights come on, get your ass home, and that's especially true now because you don't want to be out after dark because the crack problem is so pronounced, and the I guess the because of the popularity of crack, the drug trade and the violence that goes along with that is greatly increased. So you just don't want to be out after dark. Um, and we see like Justin and Wes like speed walking their way home. Like they've been hanging out with their friends, and it's getting late, and they know they need to get home, and they're not running, they're walking really fast, and they're trying to play it cool by, like, talking to each other and cracking each other up and trying to, be casual about it, but they're kind of in a hurry to get home, because it's
Yeah, it's getting
it's
late.
getting late. Yeah. um
Bye, Sarah.
Bye, Sarah.
Oh, I'm gonna have to ask her about her research.
Just don't get her to say anything she's not supposed to say.
I hope she wasn't supposed to not say. Wait, hang on. I hope that. I just okay. I don't. Legally, I have no idea what you're talking about, Sarah. Hopefully that'll help. So anyway, so yeah, they hang out with their friends and then they're starting home, but they started home a bit late and they're hurrying. And so Wes reflects back on the difference between his neighborhood friends
Yeah.
and his school friends or his classmates. And he's like so much poorer than everybody else at school, which presumably doesn't include Justin, because he talks about his mom and Justin's mom kind of being in similar
Yeah.
situations.
Yeah.
In fact, they both named their oldest girls Nikki after Nikki Giovanni, which
Yeah.
is, yeah, I'm like,
Nice little
yay,
detail. Yeah.
poets.
Yeah.
But yeah, he rotates his clothes so that he's not always, it doesn't look like he's always wearing, he doesn't wear the same outfit twice in the same week, because he'll wear like, presumably, like, I don't know if he doesn't talk about uniforms, but he has 3 good shirts and 3 good pairs of pants. So like one black, one khaki, one navy, and then he rotates them with a white shirt, a cream shirt, and a light blue shirt, and he
Yeah.
mixes it up
So that
so
he's
that
not
he's not
wearing the
wearing the same
exact same
thing.
outfit. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then later he starts borrowing his sister's clothes, um, thinking, oh my gosh,
Thinking
yeah,
that nobody notices.
the zippers at the bottoms of the jeans.
Yeah. To close off the cuff. Yeah.
Because the jeans would be tight at the ankle, and if
Right.
they were if they were that close at the ankle, oh my gosh, well, they must not have had the bow at the top of the zip, because I remember some like that.
Well, you just pull the shirt down over it, you know.
No, because the zipper's down here at the ankle,
Oh,
so
the ankle zipper had a bow.
yeah, the ankle
Oh,
zipper has the bow at the top. You
yeah.
can't pull your shirt down that low, dude. Doesn't work.
But
Oh
yeah,
my goodness
yeah, it was
gracious.
he
Ugh.
he thought that people didn't notice, but people noticed, and there's also kind of a you know
Well, he
uh,
says he says that he can only imagine the hysterical laughter in conversations when he wasn't around. So
right.
he's confident that people noticed, but they never apparently, to his recollection,
Yeah,
did anything
not to his
that let
face. Yeah,
him, yeah, that they didn't give him crap about it, and they were good enough at hiding it that he can't pinpoint anything that they said, or any time that he heard something sort of on the sly, so maybe they just let it ride, or maybe they just didn't care, I don't know.
right.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
And he also talks about a time when he claimed that his grandparents had a vacation home. And what he meant was that they lived in a parsonage because his grandfather had gone back to work and become a pastor at a church. So they had moved from the house where they lived in the Bronx to the parsonage near the church. And he was sort of embellishing again, sort of fudging the details, saying, "Oh yeah, they have a vacation home." And
Yeah.
that's not what he meant. It's the parsonage at the church. I'm sure it wasn't that luxurious.
Vacation home in Brooklyn.
And Brooklyn, a vacation home in Brooklyn, which yeah, he found out that's not as impressive sounding as a vacation home on the French Riviera.
So yeah.
And he talks about how he feels sort of caught in the middle between his school friends and his neighborhood friends, because his school friends regard him as the poor kid. His neighborhood friends regard him as getting kind of too rich for them because all of them go to public school. So even though he's the poor kid, he still goes to a private school. None of the rest of them go to a private school. So they perceive him as being above them.
Yeah. Hoity toity.
Yeah, exactly. So he finds that he doesn't really fit in perfectly to either group. And he tells the story of how he organized a baseball game between a group of his neighborhood friends and a group of his school friends that basically was
It did, to quote a certain alligator, it didn't end well.
no, it was a complete disaster. There were fights, like nobody could get along. Everybody was getting on each other's nerves and throwing punches, and the game ended before it even was over. Like I think
Although I will
four
say
innings and they called it over.
there was less gunfire than in when Louis tried to play on the riverboat. So, oh, Louis wants to play with the big boys. And so yeah, he's that's interesting. He says he doesn't feel he feels like he's not fitting in, And he says, unlike Justin, whose maturity helped him handle this transition much better than I did, I began to let my grades slip. But there's no discussion about why, given that they're, I mean, presumably roughly the same age, why Justin is so much more mature than he is, or, what it is about Justin that helps him handle it and,
Yeah.
not let his grades slip.
Yeah. Yes, I don't know. Maybe Justin's been going to the school longer, or he just has a more serious
And again, but I mean,
attitude. Yeah.
this whole thing about, choice and consequence. Well, what were the consequences that led Justin to make different choices than the author has here? It's not explored at all. I mean, we can speculate all we want, but we got nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing. Charles, I like that. Yeah, the mixed feelings of needing to live up to the sacrifices and guilt and all just everything mixed up, and just that intermingling of a whole bunch of layers there. And so then we also find out that his mom has started to threaten to send him to military school. And he's just
Yeah.
like, he does not take it seriously. He's like, yeah, maybe I could see her sending me to one of the to bring me closer to home. And so he may actually be sort of thinking, okay, that wouldn't be so bad, especially if I went to a Catholic school here, you know, he could fit in better with the local kids.
Yeah. Because what his thinking is that, well, she's not. I'm the only guy in the house.
The man of the house.
I'm the man of the house. So she's not going to send me away. Who's going to look after my sisters? Right. Because his mom works all the time to help to pay for sending him to school. So his thinking is, well, she's not going to send me to military school because I have to look out for my little sisters, or for my sister, because Nikki is his older sister, but I have to look out for my sisters while mom's away.
Man.
I'm the man of the house. And so he doesn't take it seriously. Um, and also his mom is not exactly pro-military. He says, mom wouldn't even let me have toy guns. Like, she's not sending me to a military academy. It's just not going to happen. But he's starting to not do well in school. And that's sort of becoming like a cloud over his head. And when we get to the end of this section, our parting image is his friend Justin getting ready to run home because it's dark now. The street lights are on,
and it's not safe.
And it's not safe. So his buddy Justin is like, "All right, I'll see you," and he's gonna
literally run the whole way home.
Yeah. So.
And then we shift over to the other Wes, who
the other
has
Wes
been kind of bouncing around some.
Right. He's in yet another new neighborhood. He was in a new neighborhood in the last chapter. And now here in 1987, they've just moved into another neighborhood. He says this is the fourth one that he can remember. And now they're actually outside of Baltimore City. They're in Baltimore County, which, is right out. What is referred to as Baltimore County it's right outside the city. It sort of surrounds the city.
Yeah.
So it's close. It's not far from the city, but it's outside the city. And he's living in a place called Dundee Village. And it's not like a really nice development. It's the way it's described. It's like it seems. He says the houses were modest but well cared for. It was a collection of connected, whitewashed homes. Flower pots were filled with geraniums or black-eyed Susans, and floral wreaths hung from each wooden door. So it's like a very simple sort of living arrangement, but people try to take care of it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Charles, the juxtaposition of the street names in author Wes's section and the other Wes's section. There's definitely some aspiration going on there.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. And he mentions that, and again, of course, this is Baltimore in the 80s, and if anything, the drug problem was worse in Baltimore than it was in New York, at least in terms of the effect on the population that it had. And we mentioned that this is when Kurt Schmoke had first been elected mayor. And for people who aren't from this area, you might not have any idea who that is, but Kurt Schmoke was the first black mayor of Baltimore, which seems incredible since it's been a majority black city for a very long time. But in the 80s was the first time that a black mayor was elected in Baltimore, and he was relatively young, and he was sort of looked at as kind of a reformer, kind of like, fresh blood for the city government. And one of the things that he said that is mentioned in this section is he suggested looking at the drug problem, which again was devastating the city, looking at the drug problem in terms of public health rather than just crime. And a lot of people didn't take that very well because they were used to looking at drugs as a crime issue. If you
Yeah.
want if you want to clean up the drug problem, then you arrest the dealers and you get the junkies off the street, and it's something for the cops to take care of. And Kurt Schmoke said, well, maybe if we looked at it as a public health problem and we looked at it as something that needs to be addressed in terms of treatment as opposed to just arresting everybody, we'd have more success. And I think history has shown that that attitude is correct, that that is more effective. But I mean, it's as difficult as it is to get people to get behind that today. It was even more difficult, 40 years ago. So yeah, this is our introduction to the fact that the other West is living in an area where there's a pronounced and very, very, you know, devastating drug problem as well in Baltimore and the surrounding area. We also get an update on Tony. Tony is still in the drug game, and it says now Tony is full-time in the streets. It says Tony graduated from foot soldier, and now he had other people working for him. He's completely out. He's not going to school at all. He's been out of school for years. And also, he had been shot, and he's okay. He wasn't. It
Mhm.
didn't kill him, but it says he got shot during a botched drug deal, and it was the first of 3 times he would eventually get shot. And Wes had to repeat the 6th grade. His mother was
Yeah,
worried
I
that,
was.
yeah,
That's what I've been sort of going through and sort of flipping through. Um,
yeah,
if they've moved, it's interesting that he's going to repeat the 6th grade. I guess he failed the 6th grade at his old school. He might be repeating it at a new school.
yeah,
But
yeah. I guess, yeah.
so,
Because I mean, yeah, if you fail it in one school, you can't just move to another school and go to the next grade. I mean,
well, no more. I was thinking if he's moved, why is he going back to the same school?
oh, I see.
And I
Is he
was
going
like,
back to the same
yeah.
school?
Well,
Well, yeah.
that's why I was looking around to see if you, because it talks about, he's still um
Was that before they moved?
well, he
Because it said two incidents were decisive in his mom's decision to move, and the first was Tony getting shot, and the second was that he failed the 6th grade and had to repeat it. So you could read that
right,
as
but
after he repeated it, they moved.
so he's yes, once he's failed, they have to move. But um he's feeling like he doesn't have cool enough clothes. Like he sees
Yeah,
what Tony's got, and he's jealous. Of course, Tony's buying it with his drug money.
right,
And so his mom says, Tony not only has nice clothes, he also got shot.
right.
And
Be grateful
but
for what you have. Yeah,
it says it meant nothing to Wes. All he knew was that when he got back to the city and walked its streets, breathing in the noise and bustle and craziness he was used to, he did it in secondhand gear. Why is he in the city? If it's not for school, why is he there?
maybe. Yeah, I mean, maybe he's going to see Tony. Maybe he still has friends there that he's going to visit.
But it doesn't tell us that.
Yeah, yeah, you're
Like
right. It doesn't tell us
it doesn't tell
specifically.
us that, and it doesn't tell us, what's going on with his mom. Like, is he skipping school to go there? But then back in the county, he walks away from the neighborhood he lives in, and he finds somebody uh who is essentially, watching out for the cops.
Yeah, he's a lookout for one of the local drug gangs, and Wes notices that he has on a headset, and Wes, and again, just like with the author Wes, the other Wes because he's just moved. He's still sort of trying to make friends. So he doesn't really know a whole lot of people in this new neighborhood yet. So he sees this kid
Now
standing
this
on the.
isn't in his neighborhood. This is
No,
slightly
yeah,
further
right.
from his neighborhood.
But
Yeah, but
it's in the
it's
general area that
nearby,
you.
someplace you
Yeah,
can walk to.
right. So he sees this kid standing there with a headset on, and he said, and just as a way of introducing himself and making conversation, he says, "Hey, where can I get one of those headsets?" And one of the guys that are standing with the
You know,
headset
it seems
guy
like
is
he's got like, you know, a Walkman or something that looks just like the one in Janet Jackson's Control video. Woo! Oh
80s
man.
baby.
Hey, do not discontrol.
I'm
That
not
was
dissing
like,
anything. I'm not dissing anything.
oh gosh.
Far be it for me to diss Janet Jackson. Um, but so he kind of gets questioned. Like they treat him with a lot of suspicion. Like, who are you? What are what are you doing here? And he says, "Hey, I'm just I'm new. I just moved here from the city. He says I live over here on Bledsoe, and I just was asking about your headset." And the kid with the headset says, "Well, if you want, all you need to do if you want one is to wear one, and then every time you see some cops roll by, you just push the button and you say something." And there's presumably someone on the other side of the headset that'll hear you and they'll act accordingly. So yeah, he's a lookout. And when the cops are coming by, he says, "Here come the cops," and everybody who hears that gets lost or does whatever they need to do so that when the cops show up, they don't get in trouble, and that's your
It's all
job.
good.
Yeah.
And then you get some money.
And they'll pay you. Yeah, he says, "When the shift is over, you come by and I'll give you some money." And Wes is like, "Oh."
And also, he knows exactly what he's getting into.
Yes, because of Tony.
Mm-hmm.
He's known Tony his whole life, and he knows what Tony's doing. And yeah, so this is not like a Babe in the Woods type thing where Wes is like, all I have to do is wear a headset, and he's completely innocent. And then like after 6 months, he realizes it's drugs, and he's like,
Oh,
"I have no
no.
idea." No, he knows exactly what this is from the start.
But he's not selling drugs.
Right. Right. Exactly. He says, "All I'm doing is talking into a headset. Like, what's the big deal? And if I can earn some extra money, why shouldn't I? You know, like, because it says because and remember he played football on like a peewee league, and now we're told that his two possible career paths
That he
are
wants.
that he wants, yeah, are either to be a pro football player or to be a rapper. So, and his rationalization is, he's just going to do this headset gig just to earn some extra money to hold him over until, and this is what it says, until he was running in the end zone of RFK Stadium or rocking a sold out crowd in Madison Square Garden. Because definitely one of those two is going to happen. He just needs to, just a little bit of stretch money till he gets there. So yeah.
Just pocket change in the meantime.
Yeah, exactly. Why not earn a little bit? Yeah.
So. And so, yeah, he goes in with that gang, that group, and then, but he's already gotten involved he's had some experience with drugs.
Right. Yes. Because that's where we get this anecdote from the first time he smoked pot. Because he found his mom's stash, and he was supposed to go to like a barbecue with his friend, and he finds his mom's weed stash, and he's like, "Hey, Woody, I got a better idea." So a bunch of his friends get together, and they smoke his mom's weed, and then they pick up some Mad Dog 2020, and find themselves a spot under a bridge, and smoke up and get drunk. And that's what they do instead of, going to the barbecue.
What?
Right? Or do they go to the barbecue?
Oh, yeah, that's what they do instead of going to the barbecue. But they're not supposed to go to the barbecue. They're supposed to go to school.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, well, yeah, he's supposed to be at school, but his plan was to go to a cookout, right?
Yeah, they're all going to skip school and have like hot dogs and hamburgers.
Yeah, he's supposed to be at school, But yeah, the
Just
original
look,
plan
it's
was to
so
skip
it's so.
school
I mean, it
and
starts
go to
off
a
so
cookout.
innocently.
Yeah,
We're gonna stay home and have a cookout. Bless your little hearts. I
yeah.
mean,
You sweet, sweet children.
oh, gosh,
Um,
it's just it's easy. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, you have to do that's so much work. You know, different people are gonna bring different stuff, and then you got to cook it yourself. I mean,
just go to a restaurant, kids.
Woody was bringing hot dogs and burgers. Wes would be responsible for firing up the grill. Jeez,
Yeah,
I
fuck
don't know.
that. Like, I ain't cooking for nobody. I brought the weed. You cook my hot dog. But anyway, so and they go out and they get something to eat, and Wes is so wasted that he thinks that a trash can is a girl, and he's like talking about how hot this trash can is. um, and he finally gets home, and his mom's not there, but his mom's boyfriend is there. And he's like, "Hey, how's it going, Wes?" And Wes is just like, "Whatever," and goes straight to his room because he's like not feeling good at all. And his mom's boyfriend can tell, so he goes in to check on him. And Wes is like, "I'm fine. I'm not feeling good. Just leave me
Leave me
alone."
alone.
And his mom's boyfriend smells the booze on him because not only were they smoking but they were drinking, so he smells the booze and he's like, and he figures that's what it is. Well, he just he went out some place today and he got drunk and now he has to sleep it off, right? um so when his mom comes home, she's kind of giving him a hard time about it. She's speaking loudly on purpose to sort of fuck with his headache because he has a headache and he's hungover, and she's like speaking loudly intentionally to make him uncomfortable,
Provoke him. Yeah,
to sort of like,
to try to teach him a lesson.
yeah, exactly. It's like,
Dumbass.
now you know how it feels, and that's what she says. She says, now you know how bad it feels, so now you'll stay away from drinking because that's how it always works. Um, and but it says that he knew for sure how powerful drugs could be, but he also felt a strange sense of having passed a test, graduated to a new level of maturity. It was exhilarating.
Maturity.
Yeah, maturity in the sense of I did this grown up thing that I've never done before.
Yeah, this thing that only grown-ups are allowed to do, and I did it.
Yeah,
Woo!
exactly.
So,
And even though he felt bad afterwards, he also realizes um, that it made him forget the other problems in his life,
yeah,
and it says he understood how addictive that feeling could be, and how easy it would be to make some money off of selling that feeling to people who needed it. So, and I think that's telling. It's not just he realizes what kind of an escape that drugs can offer, and he doesn't just say it can help me forget my problems. He
yeah,
thinks entrepreneurially and thinks, oh, that's why it's so easy to sell it to other people because
yeah,
they need that. And
yeah.
now that's the business that he's about to get into. So, and that's where we leave him in the chapter. He's got the headset. He's about to start the new job. So that's the end of the chapter.
And there we go.
So, um, the idea I had from this chapter was the other chapters so far have sort of been showing us, at least the way I've read them and the things I've taken from them, it's been about the way that the two Wes's are different
Mhm.
despite their similarities. Obviously, we're always reminded of their similarities, but the ways in which they're different. And with this chapter, it seemed like there's much more of a convergence in terms of their situations. Like that, we see them. They're both confronting uh, a drug problem in their city. They're
Mhm.
both feeling out of place. They're both feeling like
Mhm.
they don't fit in where they are, and they aren't really sure where they fit in their social circle at the moment. Um, they respond to it differently. Like the other
Mhm.
West decides, I might as well make some of that money.
Yeah.
Whereas it's treated as much more of a threat for West the author, um, but still, like, it seems like in this chapter they're much closer in terms of their circumstances than we've seen them up to this point.
Yeah, maybe. And also the people around them. Wes at least has, or the author at least has Justin, who is in a
Right.
similar situation, and whose mom is going through some of the same things that his mom is going through, um, and his mom is able to put by enough money, working multiple jobs, that she's able to send him not just to a private school, but to a nice private school away from their environment.
Yeah.
And the other Wes's mom doesn't seem to be able to do that for whatever reason. Um,
No, but we are told that at least their most recent move was at least partially
mhm,
motivated by Wes having problems in school, by the other
yeah.
Wes having problems in school.
And also, I mean, we have, yes, but we also see that the author's grades begin to slip, and his
Yeah.
mom's starting to talk about military school. He
Right.
ain't, he's okay with C's, slightly concerned about D's, and he's cool. B's are great,
Right.
and
But
he
mom
thinks they're
doesn't see it that way. Mom's
yeah.
like, you need to get those grades up. Yeah.
And it's not until after the other Wes fails sixth grade, mind you, sixth grade. So
Yeah.
when this happens, he's like 12, you guys,
12.
11
Yeah.
or 12. So, Joe, you talk about if only that ambition could have been directed at helping people instead of taking advantage of their suffering. What's he going to do? Get a job with, at the Salvation Army or something? I mean, I don't, he can't get a job. He's 12.
When you're 12, yeah,
You
you're
can't get a
yeah.
job. And he feels like he doesn't fit in. Yeah, it's he also, in addition, he has the environment of his school friends, or his classmates, where he feels like he doesn't fit in, but he's not seeing, you know like you said, the drugs are presented as much more of a threat, even among his neighborhood friends.
Right. Yeah.
um
Yeah. Well, and I think we also see in both cases the amount of influence that factors completely outside their control have.
yeah,
You know, I mean, because like just the idea of what you were just saying, like, well, what is 12-year-old Wes supposed to do in terms of other Wes? In terms of like what Joe was saying, like directing your energy toward helping people instead of taking advantage of them. A 12-year-old shouldn't have to worry about either one of those.
yeah,
Like Wes, the other Wes wants to make money, and part of that is that he wants new clothes and he wants to have some walking around money, but also, I mean, he's living in poverty,
yeah,
and his family has had to move 4 times that he can remember, and the economic conditions that are pressing down on him and his family are really influencing his choices here, where he's
yeah.
willing to do something that's not only taking advantage of other people and
It's
selling drugs
also
to desperate
illegal.
people. Hmm?
It's also illegal.
It's illegal and it's dangerous.
Yeah,
And he knows it's dangerous. He knows his brother Tony has been shot as a result
yeah,
of it, and he's willing to do it because he feels like he needs the money that bad. And that is a very strong influence on his decision making. And in a society, in a more just society than ours, a 12-year-old child would never be in that position. But the other Wes is in that position because of the poverty that he lives in, and to a lesser extent, Wes the author is in a similar position too. I mean, he
but
doesn't
we
make
don't see that kind of desperation. I'm not
no.
sure if you're familiar with the short story The Rocking Horse. um but essentially, a kid picks up on parents' stress about money, and he rides his rocking horse and he's chanting, "There must be more money, there must be more money." And that's sort of a refrain throughout the story. Getting me out at again. um Joe, there's no indication that he had access to any of that, you know. Exactly,
Yeah.
that neighborhoods in poverty have far less access
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
Um, and Charles Chapman, exactly, and that's one of the problems that I have with this book. The way that both Westmores are about to embark on life-defining paths through their own choices, and
Right. Those
yeah,
choices aren't made in a vacuum.
exactly,
Yeah.
and kind of like we said, that we don't really have information as to why the author is having these problems and Justin isn't, and those sorts of things. Dun-dun-dun-dun. And then we also don't, I mean, from some of the things that Mary does, the other Wes's mom, um, I get the impression that she seems to be struggling much more than Joy is.
Yeah.
She, has a series of boyfriends. We never hear about Joy dating anybody. It's like
That's true.
it's her family. That's it. That's all. This is it. Whether that's because she just doesn't take time for it, or she just, doesn't, she just sees it as another way to get hurt again. Because she's been married twice, and neither one ended particularly well.
Yeah.
So it's, yeah, random geek, exactly. Money stress is just huge. It's so huge, and Mary seems to just have more trouble dealing with it, and she doesn't have the support that Joy does, because they had was it her parents? Is it her dad who's the pastor, or is it Wes's dad?
I think it's her dad.
Okay, so yeah, so her parents are around,
Right.
and they have a vacation home in Brooklyn. Now her dad has to go back, presumably has to go back to work, and maybe, I don't know, maybe he's just like, you know what, I'm tired of sitting around this house all day. Your kids are too noisy, and
Yeah.
I gotta get out of here.
Got to get out of this house with all these damn kids running around. I'm
I don't.
going back to
That's not
pastoring.
really clear, but it
Yeah.
kind of seems to indicate that it's not entirely just I need something to do choice.
We have a lot more mouths
Yeah,
to feed all of a sudden, and
yeah, that this would be helpful. So it's, I feel like it glosses over some of the support that Joy has that Mary doesn't, and I think that lends into her, her cycling through boyfriends. Oh gosh, I got a kitty belly over here. Sorry, I gotta switch it. Switch a belly. Oh, look at that belly. Sorry, guys. Is it here? Let me see. The kitty. The kitty. Can I balance this well? So anyhow, thanks for stopping in, some random geek. Enjoy. I hope you have something lovely for lunch.
yes.
But yeah, it just I think it, and I don't know how. I know that I don't approve of the fact that I feel that it glosses over those differences. I think those differences are just incredibly important, and
Yeah.
I don't know whether I want to make the accusation. I don't know how I feel about making the accusation that it's deliberate, because essentially glossing over that allows the author to focus on the point that he wants to make, which is understandable. You can't make every point in the same book, but at the same time, I'm sorry, Charles, he's a very sweet kitty. Sometimes he's a little butt. At the same time, it feels disingenuous, like
Yeah.
it is a contributing factor, and not only not acknowledge it and point it out, but to sort of la 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 move past it, and only allow it to be there if the reader picks up on it. It makes me very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I'll say that much.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, it might also be like, I know there is a certain degree of all of our lives over which we just have no control, you know? Like there's a certain amount of what happens to us
Mm-hmm.
that is essentially left from our, certainly from our individual perspective, is essentially
Right.
left open to chance. Like, you know, a lot of the successes or failures that we have in any area of our life,
Our
uh
opportunities.
yeah, oh yeah, are, well, it depends on which way the brakes go,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't have any control over that, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that a lot of people, understandably so, are reluctant to acknowledge,
Yeah.
because we like to think that if something bad happens to us, as weird as it sounds, if something bad happens to us, it's kind of comforting to think, well, if only I had done something differently, that wouldn't have happened. Because at least that tells you that, well, you're in some kind of control. You just took your hand off the wheel and this happened, or you made the wrong choice and therefore that's why it happened, or if you had done this instead of that, then it wouldn't have happened. It's, you're still telling yourself that you're in control. And
Just
sometimes
remember
that's,
that the research says that you're wrong.
well, and
So,
it's, well, go ahead.
so this is something that has come up relatively recently in educational circles. Um, the characteristic that has been called grit, and and then that builds on Carol Dweck's research about mindset theory, which is the idea of being essentially where your locus of control is, I think is the phrase. um Whether you are, oh, hang on, it's gonna tick me off until I see it. Hang on. Carol. So what are the two? Yeah, fixed and growth mindset. So the fixed mindset says that I am essentially a product of my circumstances. I don't have control over, what happens in my life. Whereas the growth mindset says that I am responsible for, my choices and the outcomes of those choices. The amount of effort I put into something determines the outcome. Whereas the fixed mindset says I'm either smart or I'm dumb.
Yeah.
I'm either, and that's what determines how I'm going to do on this test, or, I'm either um, skilled or, unskilled. And the amount, if I have this talent, then, it's something that I can just, I'm naturally good at that, or so and so is naturally good at that. And so it doesn't necessarily, if you're good at something, it shouldn't take effort.
Right.
And so what Dweck noticed in her research is that people who demonstrate, like on surveys and such, um, the fixed mindset are less likely to be successful and are less likely to persist at a task, which, kind of correlates if you think about it.
Yeah.
And, but they are more likely to identify, they're also more likely to place, am I talking about fixed or growth right now?
I think you're talking about fixed.
Okay, they are also likely to place the responsibility for what happens to them, the reason the why they are, on, other factors. Whereas people with a growth mindset are more likely to be successful, more likely to continue to place effort into tasks, and are more likely to claim responsibility for the things that have happened to them in their lives. Where I take issue with a lot of the articles is that is the assumption of causality, that it's the mindset that leads to the effort that leads to the success.
Ah.
Whereas my point of view, my question about it is, someone who's been successful, it stands to reason that they would be more willing to take responsibility for what has
Absolutely.
happened in their lives than someone who has been unsuccessful, regardless of the actual cause of that success,
Yeah.
whether it's their effort or not. If you're
That
successful, you want to own that. And if you're unsuccessful, you're less likely to want to own that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, do any of the papers you're talking about address that? Because that seems like a pretty
I've
glaring
never
flaw.
found any, and that's one of the things in my copious free time.
Yeah, I mean, if you
But
yeah,
I
it's
would
true.
really like to.
But
So Joe McGlory, yeah. So the idea of but essentially what Dweck's research shows is that people who have bad things happen to them, it's the illusion of order and control, yes, can be comforting, but at the same time that makes it your fault, and the guilt that you can that can be, the weight of that guilt can be staggering. So it's easier, even if you're giving up control, it's easier to cede control and also let go of that guilt. That allows you to transfer the blame to something external. Yeah, exactly.
self-made billionaires, yeah, exactly.
Oh gosh, I
Yeah,
mean,
that yeah, like the
and
way you
here's
describe it,
the
that
thing. There's nobody who has become a billionaire who hasn't worked hard. You know what I mean?
sure.
I'm totally willing to grant them that. You don't become a billionaire if you choose to just sort of, coast. I could be a lot more financially successful than I am. And I choose not to be because there are more important things in life. So much more.
Right.
And it is to some degree about choices, but it's also, those choices are deeply connected to our values and to the opportunities that we have and to the supports that we have. And I think we're seeing some of that in this chapter, that there's a difference, not so much in the Wesses, but in their surroundings and their supports.
Yeah, yeah,
And
that's
but it's
something that
glossed over more in this chapter.
yeah. But that I know that's something that you've brought up before, like as one of the major differences between them is the amount of support that they have.
Yeah.
And not and the amount and the resources that the people that support them have access to, because I mean the author's family is by no means wealthy, but they did have the option to move to New York and move in with
The
his
grandparents.
grandparents. Like they were there, and even though they're not rich, but they do have a house, they do have room, they do have the at least enough resources to help out, and
Yeah.
the other West doesn't have access to any of that.
Yeah. It's, I
And
mean,
that makes a difference.
yeah, it makes a difference, and we see that difference. And again, I mean, parenting is hard. It's so hard. It's so hard. And Mary is pretty much on her own in a way that Joy is not.
Yeah.
And then the fact that she doesn't have anyone to support her, I really connect that. And I don't have any direct reason, but I can't point to any textual evidence, but I feel like that's the reason that she is cycling through boyfriends. She has no one to care for her, even when they're not living with the grandparents. Joy can call her mom and say,
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel so alone. Mary doesn't have anybody.
No. No. And that
and
makes
and
and yeah, that
and
makes a
that's, I mean,
huge
I,
difference.
I also see that as, potentially contributing to the fact that she's the one with the stash of weed. I mean, and
Yeah.
and because Wes says, that he realizes that it helped him to forget his problems. you know
Yeah.
Joy can call her parents, or when they're living with them, just talk to her parents, say, like, can you take care of the kids so that I can just have some time to myself? I need a moment. And Mary doesn't have that.
Yeah.
I really feel for Mary.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Um so that's the end of that chapter.
Yep.
And in 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be back for chapter 4, which is also the start of part 2 of the book. So we have a little interlude at the beginning
Yep.
of part 2 that we'll also read about, which will be another sort of uh, bit.
Interliminal
And yeah, ooh,
space.
nice,
It's
nice.
I always think of that. I never actually bring it up in class because I'm like, you don't need, just, I mean, it's you get to talk about, liminal spaces in college literature
Yeah,
classes. But
Don't confuse them with words in English class.
yeah, Charles, exactly. That's what I yeah, that's what I feel is a lack in this book. That it's and he does acknowledge that he's trying to show the truth, not necessarily the factuality. But I think his idea of the truth is that our choices. He's very much the internal locus of control, um, growth mindset type of person.
Yeah.
And gosh, it's just yeah, it's so hard when you're alone.
Yeah. Yeah. DK Silo, interliminal space. It was what Dana
Actually,
said.
yeah, is it interliminal? I think it's just liminal space.
Liminal space
But it's
is
also it's also the way that those spaces, the way that their two worlds, the author talks about the way that their worlds converge.
yeah.
So it's not they he has the interviews in the prison room, which is a liminal space, but
Yeah.
their meetings there make it what I call an interliminal space, because the author comes from the outside and the other West comes from the inside of the prison, and so they bring their experiences together within the interview.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
They interconnect.
Yeah. So a liminal space is like sort of a space that is
Gateway
kind
and
of
in
in
between. It's not
it's an
here
in
nor
between
there.
space. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like and in terms of like literature and art or even like in everyday experience, like a lot of people describe like
Bus
being at
stops.
being at a bus stop or being or like a train station when nobody else is there, or an airport
It just has this weird
an
vibe.
empty airport, an empty shopping mall, like the kind of place where you're conditioned to expect people to be there and you're there when nobody else is there. So it's like it is what it is, but it's also not quite what it is. You know,
Yeah.
it's yeah, that would be an example of a liminal space. Yeah.
It's like the oh, what's the effect with the face being not quite human?
Uncanny Valley.
It's like the uncanny valley, but with places.
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
literal,
There you go.
which is
Yeah.
ironic because an uncanny valley is like a
Is a
place.
literal place. Yeah.
So that's all I got.
That's all I got too. So now I do you have a video going up tomorrow? I know you had one go
No,
up.
because I had
Yeah.
one yesterday.
Right,
So
right.
I
So
should
you
have one. Ooh, so I need to write the description for the one that is going up on Tuesday, which
Tuesday.
is my last video from school. I recorded it.
Oh,
Yep, I recorded it on the day, the last day that I was there. Well, I mean, for this year, I'll be back. We don't start. We don't start till August this year. Woo! Gasp! I know. So
yeah. Everybody subscribe to Dana's channel. Dana's channel is linked in the description. It's youtube.com/Dana Cole Dares. And don't just
and
subscribe, leave
also
comments.
leave comments, please. Um, So and then
Don't forget the charity
and don't
links.
forget the charity links, which some random geek are wonderful.
Our unofficial producer, yeah. So yeah, charitylinks.page. It's also linked in the description. Go to that. It'll take you to a Google Doc that has links to GoFundMe's and PayPal pages and bail funds and all kinds of other resources for people who need a helping hand, who are in
People
some
who need
financial
support, just
distress.
like we've been talking about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so if you have a few extra bucks lying around and you want to help somebody out, charitylinks.page is a great place to go to do that. And we would all really appreciate it. Also, of course, if you want to help me out and help me continue to do the YouTube thing, you can go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron for any amount that you want to pledge per month. Or you can also just click the join button and become a channel member. And like we were talking about earlier in the stream, if you are neither a patron nor a channel member, it's whichever is more convenient for you. I really don't have a strong preference one way or the other. And you can help me out immensely by doing either one of those. Um, and let's see, we'll be back together on Wednesday to watch the first half of Serenity, the Firefly movie, as we start to come to the end of our watching of Firefly on Trek Reluctantly. We'll watch the first half of Serenity on Wednesday, and then a
Now,
week.
here's
Yeah,
do you know Wednesday, are you going to be missing some wrestling time, or is wrestling preempted again?
I don't know.
Because Serenity is like a 2-hour movie, and
Right.
I've with some help, I've coming up to yeah, but Charles Chapman, you probably don't, and Random Geek, you guys who go through into June, you probably don't start until after Labor Day. So Serenity is right at 2 hours. So I think we're going to be stopping at like 56 minutes in. So that's a bit longer than a typical television episode. So so that'll be Wednesday at 6, but normally we go like, we yak for a bit. We might have to start a little bit earlier than we normally do. Not start the show a little earlier, but actually start the dadgum movie a little earlier than we normally do.
By the way,
Um,
I think
Thank you for checking.
I think I will not be missing wrestling. I think wrestling is going to be off its regular day for the rest of the month because of the NBA playoffs. So
That's good you
I
mentioned
will
that. Awesome.
so I will not be missing. But I mean I could watch it the next day or whatever. Like, it's not that big of a
Charles,
deal.
that's
But
exactly where, yeah, it's on, yeah, there's a segue afterward, but it's actually on a good line and a good place to talk, really, I think, right there, because it connects back in with the series. And then, so yeah, Jim, he doesn't have to worry about being late for wrestling.
nope.
So yeah, we can go late if we need to.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then somebody else asked, should you suggest another book that will hurt me after Pride and Prejudice? The reason I chose to read Pride is not because I thought it was going to suck. It was because, this is like, especially as a female English teacher, it's, people just assume that I've read Pride and Prejudice. And if I've just, actually, I haven't read that, they're like, oh.
They do the invasion of the body snatchers thing at you.
Everybody's yes, the Whedon topic has been discussed, and we've also talked about, and I don't actually think I brought it up on channel, the difference between a movie and a movie TV show and like a book by a probably an author, how it's like it's this person's work,
right?
whereas a play or a movie or something like that is, even if it's by this person or directed by that person or produced by that person, or maybe even all three, you have a whole bunch of other people who are creatively involved.
Right.
So,
right.
But yeah, so something I would absolutely be up for recommendations of other books that I haven't read, but that are ones that I ought to have read. So ask me questions about, go over on Goodreads, and I mean, maybe there are plenty of books that I've read, I mean, like, yeah, that I haven't read in a while. Oh yeah, Loretta Arias says it's on Prime.
Yeah, Serenity, that's probably where I'm gonna. I don't know if it's on Hulu or not. I haven't checked, but I know it's on Prime.
Yes, absolutely. I've read Nightfall.
Yes.
But things that I are, as especially since my channel is not devoted to, but kind of focused on my teaching. Things that as an English teacher I ought to have read and haven't would be sort of top of the pile. But the other thing that I might do,
not Denny O'Neill's Nightfall novelization.
Like, oh yeah, I should have read that and I haven't. If I don't, I'll probably just go with just whatever I'm working on for that I'm just is next on my to read list. The other thing that I might do is just start updating it, at the end of the book, because I mean, my God, Pride and Prejudice has taken forever.
Yeah.
Random Geek, actually, I think I need to put debt on, because right now I don't have any library books, so I don't. It's not that I don't have anything to read, trust me. But actually, I blew through Fangs by gosh, I can't remember. Well, it's on my if you check my Goodreads.
It's on your Goodreads, yeah.
Yeah, it's on my Goodreads. So if you check that, I blew through that like at rehearsal. It was a graphic novel and it was fairly short, like 115 pages, and I had no idea it was going to be that short. So I'm like, oh, okay, so I'm done. So we I had rehearsal last night, and then today while we were out, I just dropped it back off. So now I'm out of books. But yeah, debt I want to add into ask for an interlibrary loan. Forever. I read The Count of Monte Cristo. But I've Nightfall. First of all, I've read Nightfall. Second, that's not one that I really feel like I ought to read as an English teacher. Same thing with Count of Monte Cristo. Was that, I can't remember. Did he originally publish in English? Anyway, it's not something that's necessarily considered. It's more of an adventure novel.
Yeah, it's not like an essential. Yeah.
Yeah, I did read Ivanhoe. I just remember I was first introduced to Ivanhoe through the C.S. Lewis, the Narnia Chronicles, because they talk about, reading Ivanhoe for fun. And it's actually it's one of the books that we have available to us as part of the British literature curriculum. And so it's just amusing to me that, they read. And another one, I don't remember if they mentioned it there. I've seen it mentioned is Rebecca. And then, of course, in Anne of Green Gables, she's reading Ben-Hur for fun. Because she promises instead of doing her math, she's she's like, I promise I won't read it for a week for penance, not even to find out how the chariot race turns out. Just like, bless. Some random geek. I absolutely, I will add those to my TBR, but what I'm specifically looking for my channel would have more to do. Yeah, would have more to do for as a teacher. So blah blah blah. I need to make sure I'm going to put that in. Dun, dun, dun. Toot, toot.
Joe says, read the Nightfall novel as a Batman fan, not as a teacher. I remember I read the Nightfall novel when it came out in, I guess, the mid 90s.
Yeah.
And I was very underwhelmed by it. Like, because I had read the year before they had published the novel of The Death of Superman. It was called The Death and Life of Superman, and Roger Stern wrote it. And I read that thing in one sitting. Like,
I might have to add that because I haven't read it.
It's like,
and I won't say I was underwhelmed, but I was like, oh, it's a nice book.
I thought The Death and Life, I thought The Death and Life of Superman was great. I mean, at the time I was like 13. I don't know. Maybe I'd read it today and I'd be like, yeah, I remember.
Well, I can get it from the library for free and I'll take a look at it. Well, who is it
by? But Roger Stern. But Death and Life of Superman I thought was great. Nightfall, I was very underwhelmed. By Nightfall, I thought the comics were infinitely superior, and not just, I mean, I know like he changed the story a lot for the novel, which I don't have a problem with that. I mean, you're adapting it to a different medium, and when Denny O'Neil adapted it for the novel, he cut out a lot of sort of the side quests and a lot of the stuff to make it more of a unified story.
Yeah, well, to make it more of a novel.
Yeah, and that was fine, but I just didn't I finished it and I was like, oh, okay.
So curious. Did you read the novelization of Batman Forever?
Yes, I did.
I mean, and
Peter David wrote that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Did you like the book at all?
I thought it was all right. I can't really remember it that well, but I remember liking it okay. I think I probably liked it better than I liked the movie.
That's not saying a whole lot.
I know the movie's not very good.
I remember because the book includes the scene about Scout's honor. It's one of my favorite scenes like ever, where he's the bat signal and he's like, oh, my tummy. He's on a date and he's like, oh, my tummy, and the girls in the back of the car and Alfred's driving them to from dinner to the movie or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I'm just, please don't tell anybody about this, but, I've got just a really weak stomach and just, it's kind of a family thing. And she's like, oh, no, I understand. And he's like, I'll call you Scout's honor. And so they drive off and Alfred says, you never actually joined the Boy Scouts. You were never actually in the Boy Scouts, Master Bruce. He's like, oh, no. He says, first of all, you're lying. And second of all, you never were a Boy Scout. He's like, no, I was, referring to the code of the Indian Scouts, who considered it a point of honor to lie.
Oh, Bruce.
Alfred says, you were never one of those either, sir.
Just drive the damn car.
Oh, my Goodreads. Uh-oh. Okay, here we go. Let's see if I can get that sucker to load. Goodreads is slow just all the time. All
Oh,
right.
Dolphet says just started the Ensign's log, only at episode 2. It's hilarious. Thank you so much. Let me know what you think when you get to season 3 and you get to the point where Dana joins the show, because Dana doesn't actually join the show until midway through season 3. But
You have a lot of listening to do before
but
that.
it's I'm so I mean we yeah it's we I'm I was I liked our show from the moment we started doing it. I think the first couple of seasons have some really, really good stuff. So I'm glad you're listening and I'm glad you're enjoying it. That's really cool.
So there was some random geek you're talking about anime and manga, I think. No, maybe just anime.
Yeah.
But it's something that came across my Facebook feed the other day was, the top 10 horror manga. I was like, okay, I don't know a whole lot about horror manga, but I was just like, I clicked over and I'm like, I'm like, yes, Uzumaki still at the top. Yes, that was so freaking good. But yeah, I'm curious, some random geek, if you're familiar with Uzumaki, which is I don't know if it's been made into anime, although it should have been. But yeah, it's super creepy. Anyway, I
Shall
think we
we?
got to everything. We
I
did
think so.
the charity links and
Yep. Talked about what's coming
about
up and
what
pushed your channel.
next week. And you can see me suffer. That was posted yesterday, and then I'm only on one more for Pride and Prejudice. So yes, please, and I would love comment with suggestions for English teachery books. Have I read them or not? And yeah.
Alrighty. Well, everybody, thank you. Yeah, were you going to say something?
Loretta asked, Goodreads is a site that recommends books. It is it's a social media site of book reviews. And so like you can make an account there and say, here's what I'm reading, and then you can review the books, and like you can click on, or you can put in the title of a book to see what other people have said about it.
Right.
So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And you're very active on it.
I do. Well, I have. It helps me keep track of my to read list, as well as what I've read, and I'm like, okay, so what I between Goodreads and digital interlibrary, or not so much interlibrary loan, but interlibrary loan that you can sign up for online. It's like I go over to Goodreads, look at what's next on my list, or look at what's on my to read list, and then go back and see what I can get through interlibrary loan and ask for the book. And then I just, once it comes in, then I say on Goodreads that I'm reading this thing. So it's a great way for me to be like, okay, what am I going to read next? Oh, hey, look, here it is. And then I don't even have to remember it until I get to the library. I can like ask the library to get it for me. And then the library will like email me and say, hey, we have a book for you. I'm like, oh, hey, great. I completely forgot. Because I mean, there are some of them that, everybody wants to read and they just don't have as many copies of, or they just don't have as many copies of. And it'll be like 8 weeks before I can get one. And then all of a sudden it's like, bing, here it is. I'm like, oh, that one, great. Loretta, no, they don't deliver the books. They just handle like the reviews and stuff. And the library, I do have to go to the library to pick up the book. The library is not so well funded that they have drivers.
Wouldn't that be nice if we funded our public libraries to that extent that they could afford to deliver your books to you?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't think they ever would, though. They just buy more books.
Spend the money on books, you fools. All right.
Like, what? Why would we want to do that? We can get more books.
you book fanatic.
This is the bedroom, guys. This is not the book room, and I've got a 6 foot, 6 foot, tall, 4.5 foot wide bookcase, and there are also books stacked on top. There's another one behind it facing the other direction, so they're back to back. They're both full. In some cases, no, they aren't too deep on this side. So yeah,
lots of books.
Lots of books.
Lots of books.
All right, I need to go. I'm at 9%, and I don't have my charge cord in here.
Well, there you go. Well, before Dana's computer dies on her, let's say goodnight. Thanks everybody for watching. Have a good night. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you. The two of us will see you on Wednesday for Trek Reluctantly.
For half of Serenity.
Woohoo! Take care, everybody.
Bye.